What's your favorite scary movie?
Be like, I'm dying.
If some guy came up to me and said, "Hey, Big Eyes," I'm like, "It's over and done. We're married now."
Someone in the movie, so I'm like, kiss. But
Oh God, what a sea of humanity.
Hello. Welcome into a special edition of 52/1994. My name's Cody. I'm joined by my pinball wizard friend, Ryan.
I'm back.
Welcome in to everybody. Usually we do, we watch 52 movies from the year 1994, but occasionally I feel like we don't cover everything. So we do 4 to 5 movies every month that don't quite make the cut. We want to give them their due. And this month we're talking about our topic, which is sports. And sports, which means that every movie this month has sports in it. And they're not, some of them are better than others. I do feel like we have had some very, very bad movies while doing this, and I feel like we got some decent movies this time. They're not the worst I've ever seen. The Flintstones is one of the worst I've ever seen. I did not like the Flintstones, but we're here to talk about 5 movies this month and hopefully do them justice. We are talking about the movies 8 Seconds, Above the Rim, The Air Up There, Blue Chips, and The Scout. Any familiarity with these, Red Rock?
Yeah, Red Rock's Revenge over here. I'd only seen one of these movies before, and I had a lot of. It felt like a hidden gem to me, and I had a lot of nostalgia for The Scout. It is an imperfect movie, but I still love it.
Very imperfect movie. And we can actually we can start with The Scout. Typically I go to ChatGPT to give me a tagline for these movies, but ChatGPT was failing me, and so I just said The Scout, or it goes by its other name, Are You My Dad? This movie
Real?
No, I came up with
Yeah.
Are You My Dad? This movie had a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's about, Albert Brooks, who plays a scout for the New York Yankees. He doesn't do too hot and recruits Michael Rappaport to be a country pitcher, which was a bold choice. And a couple of these guys don't, work out, so he gets sent to Mexico to be, live in no man's land. And then he finds this guy named Steve Nebraska, played by Brendan Fraser, and he is probably the best baseball player he's ever seen. Comes back to New York and gets him signed to the Yankees, but Steve is kind of a weirdo. He's got some issues, and I'm calling him a weirdo because there's no diagnoses on this planet.
There's no diagnoses. Yeah, they're in between the lines. He's doing well. Has a healthy dose of PTSD and autism, which is
yes, I thought autism right away. I was like, oh yeah, this guy doesn't like
a hard hand to play. He's doing his best.
So yeah, this is the one I think I had seen actually all of these movies, but The Scout I didn't really remember as well, and I think I only remember the first half of The Scout rather than the second half of The Scout, which they are 2 different movies. I feel like. What did you think?
I still love The Scout. It is like a weird Frankenstein movie. A lot of different things put together. It's not that funny, but I feel like I used to watch it on Comedy Central.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely funny parts to it, but then it gets very serious very fast. I think Brendan Fraser, Albert Brooks, and Diane Wiest are doing wonderful jobs in this movie. I think that's what carries this movie into being an enjoyable watch. And I love Albert Brooks so much. I really would. I would watch him in anything. And Diane Wiest is an amazing actor, and Brendan Fraser's young. I think he's only really done Encino Man at this point.
Well, he's been in 3 movies that we've talked about this year, that you and I have both talked about, because they've all been on these bonus episodes that we do. So we did With Honors, and we did
With Honor
Airheads.
and Airheads, of course. He was so good in Airheads. He's really peaking in like acting like right now. He's very willing to act out. He maybe overacts a bit, but it brings a lot of like silliness and quirkiness to the role where he's like the central interesting character. So
He is good. Like, especially in the 90s, he's kind of like taken this role before he got to The Mummy, and was like this. He's not a loser ever in any of these movies. He's kind of a cool guy, and he just doesn't have it all together. Whether there's always like a piece missing of Brendan Fraser, and that's what the movies always end up being about. Is like
and finding that piece.
Cool guy trying to find that piece, whether it is this or Encino Man, or because Encino Man, he can't even function as a human being, but he succeeds as a fun human being to all these people.
Yeah, I wonder if that was like a choice of his as an actor. Like he went after like quirky roles. With Honors is a pretty normal role because Joe Pesci's doing all the quirkiness, but he's and then obviously The Mummy and later on is different. But like Encino Man, Blast from the Past,
I love Blast from the Past.
This thing, even Airheads is a little comic, so he's trying to be a comic actor a lot. He has a great facial expressions, and he really has a wonderful voice. The moments in The Scout where he raises his voice, like it's really powerful. When he's like, "I don't want to, Al," like he kind of puts it into his chest a little bit. Like he feels scared, he feels angry. It kind of like affects you a lot because he's mostly a little whiny. He's mostly like, "Oh, come on, man, I don't like all these questions or whatever." And then when you see him get intense, you feel the fear you're supposed to feel about his mysterious past.
And I do think you're right about what you said about him overacting a bit. I do see that, but I'm also never laughing at his outbursts. Like they feel like they're good. Like what you're saying when he raises his voice or he has a moment of like, I don't deal well with all these questions. I think he could honestly have overacted that and made it not as good as what he does with it.
Right. Because he feels angry and vulnerable at the same time in this movie. I think that's what's great about the movie. I would watch Diane Wiest and Albert Brooks argue with each other all day long. That's really great. The way he keeps like trying to be a little slimy and a little flirty and like convince her of things, and the way that she like politely smiles and explains that that's not going to work is pretty wonderful. And then the little buddy movie between Steve Nebraska and Piccolo, I think it was named.
Al Piccolo. Yeah.
Then it's like roommates is pretty cool. But the movie is crazy because it's like it spends a third just being about scouting, and then a third of the time about his like his like mental diagnoses coming out and his problems coming out. And then Albert Brooks being a good buddy but being a little slimy, and there's a lot of scouting in all of these movies, really.
Like I want to say 4 out of 5 of the movies have to do with college recruiting in some way.
It's wild. But like at the end, I felt my heart sink when I was watching it last night, and I was like, "Oh, are they about to go to the World Series already? Like that's just going to start happening now? That's just all of a sudden there? Like, yep, that's where we are." He has never once practiced with the Yankees. He's never met his coach. He's never met another player. He's never been on the ball field, like, or in the dugout at all. Like, there is nothing in the middle of this movie between being recruited for the Yankees and then his first opening game at the first game of the World Series that have anything to do with him being a part of that team. And then all of a sudden, there he is, World Series. Bob Costas is here. Let's go.
And I honestly, I think that might be a little bit of the downfall of this movie is that there isn't as much of the baseball element to it. And there really should, and they really, really wanted to make sure that you knew like all of his, like they took you through so many of his like, mental mishaps or whatever, like him throwing plates out there or him reacting to reporters or him going off with some girl and not coming home until late in the morning or whatever. Like they
played enough. I honestly think that like I never say that movies need to be longer, but I feel like this just needs another half an hour. Yeah. And in that half an hour, you need to see some escalation of his mental problems. You need to see him actually be in therapy. You never really see that, and you need to see him be around baseball. And then there needs to come a moment where he's like revealing the specifics of his trauma, right? And it just needed more of all of that. And instead, it kind of like piddled around at the beginning, even though they got into Mexico and out of Mexico fast enough. I didn't like
Mhm.
when we were there. I was scared. It was 1994. I was just scared of what jokes were coming, and it was overall fine enough.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was about finding the one white guy in Mexico, which is
He just added. He kept adding "o" to the end of all of his words.
yeah,
and
there
that
was
was
just
like
two of
the.
those. I'm like, all right, yeah, that old Saw. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just missing those elements to be a great movie. But I really like watching it because I like watching the three of them. And I remember, I think that I like The Scout because it surprises me. Pretty much every other, I'm not gonna say every other movie. A lot of the other movies that we watch today, Blue Chips might be an exception. Like, are pretty obvious plot wise. And
Yeah.
so turning this from like a quirky baseball kid in the big city of New York into like a really scary and intense mental health moment. And I remember very well from watching it over and over again, like the final scene on the roof of the stadium. It's like they make it really dramatically powerful. Like you're scared, he's gonna jump. There's all these people watching. He's scared shitless, and he doesn't know what to do. And and then you hear Albert Brooks raise his voice a little bit, get a little angry, be emotional, and start yelling at him like, "Hey, come on, man! What are you doing? Like you're screwing everything up. Like we can figure all this out later. All you gotta do is pitch. You know how to pitch." And then that I will always remember because I still find it very affecting. The moment where Albert Brooks breaks and gives up and goes, "You know what, kid? You don't want to play. You don't have to play. Let's just go home. Let's just go get food. I know you're hungry. Like let's just go get
Yeah.
food." I give up. Like he's kind of pushing what he needs throughout the whole movie, pushing and pushing and pushing to hit it. And then he finally sees the stakes of this like vulnerable kid that he's responsible for having up on that roof. And he goes, you know what? Screw it all. I'll just be a failure. I can't push you any further than I've already pushed you. Just come down and be chill with me. And it's kind of a nice moment.
And in that moment, it's like Albert Brooks's character is not trying to be his father anymore.
Yes.
And he's like, I'm not your father. I'm not even your friend. Like he's essentially like,
he delivers that line. I'm not your father. I'm not even your friend. Like it's really good acting by him, and that's
Yeah.
what Albert is always good at, doing the kind of like he's like the '80s version of like the neurotic, dramatic Jewish guy, right? From like Woody Allen, Jerry Lewis to Woody Allen to Albert Brooks. Pat takes that torch into Seinfeld and Larry David. Like that's who Albert Brooks was in the '80s. But then he's able to bring that heart to the role a lot in his own movies, which I highly recommend. He does a lot of great comedy, a lot of great neurotic acting with a lot of like heart and commentary and what's important in life. Yeah.
No, I love. I've only seen a couple Albert Brooks movies. I know you've recommended them to me, a lot, and I've seen a couple this year, in fact, because of those recommendations. But no, I love Albert Brooks and what he's done. Obviously, most people know him probably as the voice of Marlin from Finding Nemo, which is, I mean, honestly, that's what most people know him from.
I thought you were about to say when he came back for a second and he played an amazing gangster in Drive.
Oh yeah, Drive. He's great in Drive.
Acting forever. He was known for being like a neurotic, thoughtful comedian actor, and then he came back to be like a pretty horrifying, scary mobster in Drive, which was kind of awesome.
This movie makes me think of Bull Durham a little bit. There obviously Bull Durham's a little bit more of like a love triangle, but it is about this pitcher in the minor leagues and this old catcher played by Kevin Costner, whose whole goal is to make sure that this young hot pitcher doesn't have the yips and can make it on the next level. So they're trying everything, and then Susan Sarandon's character comes in for like the sex cures all these guys kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it is a little bit of that, like the relationship between Kevin Costner and Susan Sarandon is, I could have seen that with Albert Brooks and Diane Wiest's character a little bit more. And then maybe if we had baseball as therapeutic for Steve Nebraska, I would have, like you said, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more therapy, a little bit more baseball. Hell, combine them and make this is how he functions, is because he has to be on the baseball field. That's how he gets through, and that's how he destroys whatever demons he has, PTSD stuff in his head. So I could see some comparisons there of Bull Durham. There are other movies that I'm sure that are reminiscent of this, like Trying to Get a Guy to Play, and even Blue Chips has this a little bit, like with the teacher character, Nick Nolte's ex-wife or whatever, working with Neon to make sure that he passes his test. It's that
He's
same
such
kind of
an interesting
dynamic.
guy. I guess in a lot of sports movies, and I can appreciate a straightforward sports movie too. But I like that Brendan Fraser and Albert Brooks are kind of underdogs and weirdos in their own way, and outcasts, and they're trying to succeed in this like very like kind of normie coded space. But in like Blue Chips, like Shaq is the only interesting character. Like the other three guys are pretty like they're just athletes, and they just they got hoop dreams, and that's what they got, you know, like, and a little bit of greed, and they're young and all that, and so like I can like a typical sports movie that's about like rallying a team, or a kids movie that's about rallying misfits like Bad News Bears, Little Giants, or whatever. But I kind of love The Scout for being about an incredibly talented athlete who is not socialized normally into sports or into the world around him. That kind of outsider thing is pretty neat.
Some of the stuff about Brendan Fraser and the way he played Steve Nebraska is I mean, there is like an aw shucksness to Brendan Fraser's character and every character he brings, but some of the stuff like when he was in Mexico is the stuff that I love about Brendan Fraser, and whether it's written in the script or not, but like when he's talking, he's like, I've never had to pay for a taco at this place. I think that's some of the funniest stuff. Like he's so sincere, and that's like his life. He's so happy to be in this position. I don't have to, I can eat for free wherever I go here. Like people love me. Like I love that part. Just that one line where he's like, I've never had to pay for a taco here. Like thinking that's the coolest thing ever.
Well, and this movie is not incredibly sophisticated in the way it talks about mental health, just like any 1994 movie probably wouldn't be. But they do have some intelligence about it. And like the things that Diane Weiss say are appropriately Hollywood vague, but they are specific enough to like have some accuracy, right? But also you kind of have this Arrested Development moment that whatever trauma he went through kind of kept him perpetually 8 years old, right? Like that's kind of what when you learn more about him, like, and then even when he throws a fit or says, I'm going to do what I want and you're not my dad and I'm going to stay up late if I can, I just want to eat a ton of food or whatever, all of that just feels like a growing child and not a full grown man, which he is.
Yeah. Steve Nebraska sounds like a rejected Hannah Montana character, and that's pretty good. I totally agree that he's stunted, and I do like they feed us these mental health issues and stuff, and they never give us enough with it. And so I think that really is my biggest complaint.
I read that this movie went through a ton of rewrites and was sitting on the shelf for a long time. And that the original version was like that Babe Ruth had some like super soldier injections and no other ball players ever had them until Steve Nebraska. And that's all they said about the first version of the movie, that it was like a wild like romp of adventure and sci-fi and weirdness.
I want to see that movie.
I want to see that movie. Yeah, totally.
No, that sounds good. I would love to see this made in 2024.
Yeah, honestly, it could be really good. Yeah, totally. And you know, we've had certain things about like fiction narratives about athletes being gay, or even you have stuff like The Blind Side, like overcoming that bullshit. I mean, a horrible movie, but yeah, like there's those kinds of things. But actually, a grown man who's trying to deal with the mental stresses that they already have, or a grown person, and you know, trying to figure out whether sports is worth it with all that pressure around them. That's a pretty cool thing. They should do lots of versions of that movie, especially because we're a lot more aware, and we're all bigger nerds about the sports industry. We're all bigger critics of it. We're all very aware of how crooked it could be and how it could chew people up, and the precarious line athletes walk a lot to like survive and be healthy and get out in one piece. It's kind of wild. It's a crazy world.
Yeah, and I think that talking about sports in the like I said, 4 out of the 5 movies that we talk about have to deal with college recruiting and have to deal with a time in sports where these kids were recruited very young and were illegally, you know, through ways, given houses, given cars, given money to come play at these schools. And now that's like, this is these 4 movies are a foreign concept because now it's like legal. They can all get money in different ways to go to these schools.
Which is a big win. But I don't follow sports enough to know like how well that system's working for everybody. Maybe still be early enough to even truly know, because there's only been, I don't know how many college athletes have gone through their whole college career since that rule was changed.
Yeah. And not many, because honestly, like, you know, the ones that are getting paid to go there, like if you're good enough to get out of school as a football player in 3 years, you're going to go to the NFL.
That's true. Yeah. The
In
people
basketball, it's just 1 year. So, in there's people that are even getting around that and skirting around that, going playing overseas. So, it's definitely an interesting time and would be an interesting way to like movies would be a lot more interesting now just to see with like the which is it's called NIL, how that works with like some of these stories and
right.
how it's legal for people to do these things now. So,
I'll just say that the Scout of these movies will probably remain the one I feel warmest about because I have long-term nostalgia for it. It's not the movie. And I would share maybe the funniest laugh in the movie to me is after his first meeting with Diane Wiest, and Brendan Fraser's out in the waiting room, and she's like, "Just so you know, he could get really violent." And he's like, "Oh, wait a second," closes the door. And I was like, "Yeah, he's looking to you as a father figure, and he has a lot of unresolved feelings about his father." And he goes, "Okay, thank you." Then he closes the door again. He goes, "How does he feel about uncles?" And she just gives him a look, and he goes, "Okay." And he opens the door and he goes, "It's Uncle Lau." Rebranding himself as his uncle.
Yeah. I particularly like when Brendan Fraser's on the floor of the waiting room and he has ripped apart all the magazines and put on all of the perfume. Smells good. And she's like, "Yeah, it does."
I had a vivid memory of the tortilla scene from early on too. Like when I think about the Scout, I think about him biting the eyes and the mouth hole in the tortilla and just like making like gross tongue things with his tortilla mask. It's pretty great.
Well, I mean, it's not my favorite of the five. I have more warm nostalgia for some of the other ones that we're going to talk about, particularly one that your name comes from. I have a lot more warm nostalgia for that movie, which is wild. But let's talk about Blue Chips, which is that's the one that's probably freshest on your mind. You just watched Blue Chips, right?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I have 7 minutes left, and I kept watching it even as the intro is playing because I'm at the Nick Nolte press conference scene. Pretty much got through that, and this movie's really good. I like Blue Chips a lot.
William Friedkin.
Yeah. He did what did he do? I saw
The Exorcist, Sorcerer. So my tagline was like The Exorcist, but the demon is Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
So that's where my name comes from. Neon Bodo, or Budo.
It's weirdly spelled in the closed captions. It's not quite spelled like that, but it's
it's weird. Anyway, this movie is got I think this one has 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's about Pete Bell, a college basketball coach. He's trying to improve his team standing by any means necessary. And he goes after a trio of talented players: Neon, Butch, played by Penny Hardaway. Neon's played by Shaquille O'Neal, and Ricky Rowe, who's played by Matt Nover. They're all guys that were very good college athletes and went on to play in the NBA. But in order for him to get them to go to the school, he has to like illegally pay them. So again, this is something that's not as relevant anymore. And this comes from the way of like Nick Nolte being the good guy at the beginning of this movie, the good coach, the guy that never wants to soil his program, to, succumbing to these things to try and be, to try and compete with all these other colleges that are paying kids. So,
yeah, I didn't expect much of it. I think I enjoyed this movie. I think it might be the best movie on the list. And it's unique and compelling because it is about ethical gray rounds. There are multiple like factors and characters involved that are coming out from different places. It's a sports movie about morality and like what the meaning of these things are. It's funny that I kind of disagree with the message of the movie pretty hard. But I loved watching. I think Nick Nolte's wonderful in it, and I think his wrestling with the stuff is like very, very real. And when they have the final win, at the end of the movie, and he can't even celebrate because he feels so dirty, and then he talks to his players about it and apologizes, and then he goes off in the press conference at the end and goes, "I'm a cheater. This whole industry's a cheater, and this is what happened, and I'm here to like pay the piper for that stuff." I think it's pretty rad.
Yeah. It's interesting that they have Nick Nolte. He's playing this Bobby Knight-esque figure. And Bobby Knight even shows up in the movie. And I think that's kind of who he learned all of his stuff from. This hard-nosed coach that loves his players, gets a little too angry at times.
He shadowed Bobby Knight before the movie.
Yeah. And I think the thing that really struggles with this movie are, I think the players are some of the worst parts of this movie, like Ricky Rowe and Penny Hardaway. He is not a good act. Butch is not a good actor. But hey, Alfre Woodard comes in there to be amazing, as Alfre Woodard would be, in what she's given in this role as mother, which I feel like is kind of what everything that I remember about Alfre Woodard from the 90s is that she always played somebody's mom, somebody's hard-nosed mom.
She was always smoking a cigarette and looking at somebody in disgust.
Yeah. And it's funny because whenever I think of Alfre Woodard, and I don't feel like she had quite the career that she probably should have had. She was great in Crooklyn. We watched that earlier this year and loved her in Crooklyn. But I feel like she has like Viola Davis vibes, and Viola Davis did this exact same role last year, playing Michael Jordan's mom in the movie Air. So just interesting.
Well, it's funny too. Like there are some crossovers with these like basketball, or with Blue Chips especially, but you could pair it pretty well with Hoop Dreams too, right? Like especially with that family, with Bodie's family, a little bit more of like the kind of grossness of what the basketball promises as a way out of poverty and for Black Americans, and just like trying to walk that narrow path to get through the, actually get the golden ticket at the end of it. There's some of that going on here too.
I actually love Neon's character. I don't think he's, obviously Shaq's not an amazing actor, but he is the best out of the three. You said that earlier. I love his response whenever he's sitting in class and he just kind of like gives up on the class and says that it's like racist or whatever. I thought that was very
biased.
Yes.
That's kind of fun because nobody in the scene's ever really that angry, or so therefore nobody ever gets hurt too bad, because he's kind of even like whatever, like even when like but the class keeps laughing at everything he's saying. I'm like, the stuff he's saying isn't not funny. But like I wish they had written a little better, where he had a little bit better criticism, because the professor is like, the class was called English literature, right? I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't make Shaq's point look very good.
No. But Shaq is the only character in this movie that is he truly recruited without the needs of using the boosters, the athletic boosters, to get him a car. Like he got sent a car and he's like, I don't want a car. I'm good. I just want to.
Yeah, Shaq's character is the most interesting and the most fun to watch of the three on screen, but he's never fully explained. Like he talks about like how he lied and he bombed his SATs for a vague reason, because he was like, I don't know what he didn't want.
Those tests are culturally biased.
Is what he says, but he says he bombed it on purpose.
Yeah,
it's not. He didn't. I mean, I guess I don't know why he took it then, or whatever. But like, he keeps that secret. And then, but you never give a reason why he's kind of this like loner, because he doesn't have any family. He doesn't seem to have anything going on. He doesn't have access to money or whatever. And he's like, hey, you know what? I'll give this college thing a try for real this time, just to see if it's all bullshit or not. And you don't get any like, I don't know. He's kind of like spiritually awake, and but you never find out why he's like that. It doesn't really ever matter that much, except to give one of the players a kind of pure spirit, I guess, as part of it. Yeah.
Doesn't ask for anything like the other people, because I do think that we end up turning. Like the way this movie goes is we're supposed to turn on the kids and their families.
Well, and there's a spectrum too, because there's the guy from French Lick who is just kind of straight up like kind of greedy and a little racist and stuff. And then there's there's Bodie, who's like, hey, I'm down to cheat. I want to cheat, but I love my family so much, and like we don't have a lot of other options, right? Like, if we're gonna have a house that we can all live in, if we're gonna have some security, like this seems like my card to play. But then you have like this kind of unexplained guru and Shaq's character, who's just like needs nothing in the world, but is like, I don't know, it sounds like a fun lark to go play college ball. I guess I'll try on my SATs this time. I know all the Central American countries in a row. There's like little Goodwill Hunting guy for some reason.
I love that. I love
insecurity within the players too, that they're trying to show. There are like greedy people with greedy parents, and that there are needy people with needy families, and then there are just kids who just want to play ball.
Hmm. I love Mary McDonnell in this movie, who plays Pete Bell's wife, the one that ends up
Great.
tutoring. She's great. I love her anytime she shows up. She gives the exact same energy every
Yeah.
time I see her, whether it's in this or Battlestar Galactica or Independence Day is the other one where she's the president's wife in Independence Day, who ends up passing away.
Shout out to the Battlestar Galactica 6515 in chat. We
What was-
love to see him.
I forgot about that. That must be his Cylon number 6515.
6515.
No, I like this movie, and I do think that this movie. I have a bit of nostalgia for this movie because my sisters loved my middle sister really loved this movie. She had like Shaq. She had the Shaq rap album around the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Shaq Fu, all that stuff was coming out too.
Shaq was on the come up for sure.
And Little Penny. I remember Penny Hardaway, and then the Little Penny commercial. So this was, a pretty.
Penny Hardaway's the Memphis guy, right?
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
still coaches here, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. I always forget that. I lived in
should
Memphis the past few years, but yeah. Penny Hardaway's from Memphis and he coaches here, so he's kind of a local celebrity in my parts. I mean,
You
he's a
should
celebrity.
you should get a Blue Chips VHS and see if you can get him to sign it.
I should go to a game with like Bodie.
It'll be great.
Yeah.
No, I feel like I think all of these movies, not a theme of all these movies is like they're not terrible, and like there's just a couple things that I would change in them that would make them a lot better, minus maybe the air up there. But even that has some moments in it where I'm like, no, this is good. This is working for me.
Yeah.
Even if the air up there is the most like white savior out of all of them.
Totally. I mean, Air Up There is the worst movie in this bit, and I'm not sure we have a ton to say about it. But like, yeah, all of this, I do like that. All of this, as a person who's never been into sports, can enjoy watching sports, but will never follow it and don't care that much. I've always liked sports films, and because they either take a hero's journey of like unlikely heroes, or people have to overcome things in order to have this clearly defined moment of victory and conquering, through their hardships and their character or whatever. But all four of the ones other than 8 Seconds, probably like they're about the ethics around how much we care about sports without ever having to make a movie about that. Like none of these movies would be like trying to sell it in the elevator. Like, we want to talk about the ethics in sports. They're like, no, we just want to make like a realistic, fun basketball movie or whatever. So you always have even Kevin Bacon as the white savior is clearly like an archetype of a scout who's so overly motivated that he doesn't really care about other people until he learns to care about other people and finds out he can succeed at his job and be even more successful internally by caring about the people he's scouting and stuff.
And he can also convince a nun to give up her vows and do whatever.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
Well, they kiss.
They had a kiss. Okay. I'm not done with Blue Chips though. We should talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what there is to say other than
is it true?
Okay, so let's talk about how I really love Nick Nolte's journey, and he feels like he's sold out. But I also there's the grody bad guy who he hates for being the football coach that does give kids things illegally, like money and stuff like that, to play for him. And then when he has that first confrontation, the bad guy's like, "Hey man, we make millions of dollars off these kids. They get nothing. They deserve the money I give them." And I go, yeah, they do. Why are we on that guy's side? Like, and at the end, like Nick Nolte's like, "I'm sorry, kids. Like, I helped you break these rules, and you're adult enough, I guess, to know the difference between right and wrong. But like, my crisis of conscience is gonna fuck your college career up and your NBA prospects and everything you got and your mom's house and your dad's tractor. Like, because I'm such a bad guy, I betrayed basketball by giving these kids like something for their value," which I don't agree with necessarily.
Right.
And we also know that the industry now doesn't agree with it because it's been a contentious point for so many years, and we've overturned that in the basketball industry by letting college players receive funds and stuff from the merchandising. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And this movie comes out in 94, and that's 30 years goes by where we turn a blind eye to all these colleges. We know that they're breaking the rules. Occasionally we'll go after one school and do that. So like the message of this movie doesn't really, I mean, if we're looking at it at a grander scale, as opposed to just Nick Nolte's like virtue and him like coming around and being like, oh, this wasn't for me, and like I'm dead, like dead to this world now, and I'm retiring from this. So I don't know what the message is of this. Like,
It's
is
a
it?
little confused. It's delivered so well that I find it very compelling at the end. But I think the message is a little confused. I would say even the smaller thing where he goes back and finds his other star player shaved points like 3 years earlier. And then that kid's crying and admitting it. And the kid even says, like, I didn't throw the game. We won. I just didn't cover the spread. It isn't that for shady gamblers anyway. And I'm like, yeah. Well, this kid some money for being really good, and he didn't even throw the game. Like, it is like he did just screw up a lot of like grown men's adult betting on practically children's athletics, you know, like in my opinion at least. So I was like, yeah, I don't think he did anything all that bad. He cheated, he lied. That's not good, but he broke rules and there are consequences. But at the same time, I'm not like, oh my God, you really sold your soul, didn't you? No, he carried his team to a win and got a little paycheck on the side.
Yeah, it's a little 8 men out, you know?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like Shoeless Joe, I mean.
Oh yeah. The Black Sox,
yeah, the Black Sox. He batted like over 300 in the series and everything. He was like, I did what I was supposed to do and made it look good. Like, who cares? Yeah,
and
betting.
then like, oh my God, like the memory of the Black Sox scandal. Said and so Joe, how could you do this to us or whatever? But like nobody's really sticking up for the players. After every attempt at a union gets like destroyed, and then they're just sleeping like 3 to a bunk. You know, they get just enough money to stay drunk, like back then, especially. And so, yeah, there's been a long history in baseball of fighting for players' rights. And then now people get mad that they get paid the most. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. Like, let them have a century where they get to be on top for a second. Then we'll switch it off again.
Yeah, this lasts for this long, but
yeah,
it is whatever. No, I think about that. Especially, it's interesting. Like you and I have both watched wrestling in the past and everything. I just been watching this Netflix documentary about Vince McMahon and how not a great guy he is. But every time that there's like a sniff of a union forming in wrestling, it gets snuffed out real quick, and those people are gone from the industry. Jesse the Body Ventura famously tried to get one started, and Vince was like, "You're out. Like, see ya." Go become governor of Minnesota or whatever.
Talk about like pyramid conspiracies and aliens and shit. I love Jesse Ventura.
Yeah, he's definitely something. But I would recommend this movie. It's unique that we get to see a movie from a coach's perspective more than focusing on the players, and I think that's one reason I like this. It could have easily just been a Bobby Knight biopic. But it chose a little bit different of a path for that. So I do like this movie. No,
I think this is the best movie of the 5. I thought 8 Seconds would be, in the fact that it's the most fun and ridiculous to watch. But this was both a more straightforward, normal movie, not a psycho movie like 8 Seconds. But I was surprised at the quality that was there. Like I could see myself watching this again in a few years and really enjoy it all over.
And I think that's what happens when you get to put it in the hands of somebody. Like if you have 8 Seconds directed by Steven Spielberg, it might be a better movie. But we get, Blue Chips by Friedkin instead. Let's talk about 8 Seconds, because this is my personal favorite of the 5.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind. Well,
okay.
Yeah, let's talk about 8 Seconds. Absolutely, let's do it.
We can do whatever you want.
This movie is insane.
So 8 Seconds, or Fun to Ride Until Your Friends Find Out, is about Lane Frost, is a cowboy who rises to become a professional bull riding champion in the 1980s. Along the way, he endures some bad injuries and the ups and downs of married life. This movie is 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not the lowest, though. It's right up there with The Scout. The Scout and it are 31%, sitting good. Luke Perry in what was probably supposed to be his star-defining role as and this is the only biopic we have of the 5 movies.
Which until the end, I didn't know it was about a real person, and I could never have guessed that because none of these people are real people to me.
This movie and the movie Pure Country had a hold on me and like my extended family
You were
for
4-H pill too. I mean, you were
oh
like,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, some Bronco busting and mutton chopping and all that bullshit. Like that was
Oh.
right up your cornfield alley.
And this also Stephen Baldwin. You make fun of this movie all you want. I think Stephen Baldwin is a pretty convincing redneck in this
Oh, okay.
movie.
I thought you were gonna say the R word. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's pretty as a dumbass, totally.
yeah.
Like, yeah, as an inbred dumbass, absolutely. He pulled that off like crazy well.
Which is so interesting. Like both those guys, the Lane Frost's friends in this actually went on to be like much more popular, much more successful in the bull riding industry.
Yeah.
His friend Cody is the one that invented the vests that bull riders now wear that protect them from getting crushed to death.
Well, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't have vest. Yeah, I guess it's not very cool. I mean, it comes from a culture way back about like the dangerous part of what's cool about it.
Right, right. This was the one that I was like, I was bull riding as a whole is such a fascinating sport that it still blows my mind that this exists. Just like bullfighting even exists. Like the
Yeah.
fact that these sports still exist blow me away. Not only because they're dangerous to the human element of it, but completely dangerous for all the animals involved. for
Yeah.
this too.
I will then take my 30 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I wanted. So
Fuck what people do to those animals. Bull riding's lame and it shouldn't exist. It's not fun to hurt animals or scare them. It's not okay to hurt them like physically or mentally. And when that bull at the end killed the main character in this movie, I said, let's fucking go. You had that coming. They hurt you for money and fun. Fight back, bulls. And that's my little thing there. I wish all of them got killed by the bulls.
I never understood for the longest time why the bulls were so mad when they come out of the. I was just like, they just come out bucking. That's their thing. They don't like people on their back. Maybe that's what it is. No, what they do in bull riding is they put a fucking rope around their nuts.
Yeah.
And
No,
that
I've been told when I brought that up in the past, I've been told by a number of people that they don't do that anymore. I don't know how they get them to buck. I don't know if it's training or some other way, but I've heard that that's like not a common practice anymore. But it was a common practice for a very long time. At least.
It definitely was in this, right?
Probably, yeah, the 80s.
So how do they get them to buck? I don't know.
Low key, I'm gonna even say something crazier on the internet live right now. There's a story of a lady in Oregon who got all her horses taken away because a neighbor saw her jerking one of them off. And I'd rather be a horse jerked off by a nice lady than a bull with shit tied around my fucking nuts for fun. Somebody's fun.
I guess that's wrong. What they are, they just all have different bucking abilities, and they are just pissed off that somebody's on their back.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think they're trained to do it too, and they've done it like 100 times, so they know like what the whole deal is, you know.
So I've been wrong about this too, but anyway, get up.
Past, right?
What now?
The testicle like crushing was like a thing in the past.
I do think that's true. That couldn't have come from nowhere, like we didn't just make that up. And it could have been at this time. Anyway, this story is about Lane Frost, who was, hot shit bull rider whose daddy didn't love him, and he ends up getting killed by one of the bulls that he rides, which is
it's not even Red Rock. He's like, it's the one before Red Rock. He's like, I'm finally gonna be the guy because Red Rock was a famous bull that had never been ridden for the 8 seconds, and 8 seconds is like the minimum you have to ride a bull before it counts as points. Yeah, and nobody had ever done it with Red Rock, so he was like, "That's my new goal." It was so funny. Me and my girlfriend were watching this, and the whole movie's actually about like infidelity. It's pretty much like Johnny Cash with bull riding. Like, it's like a behind the music thing. Like, I had the sweetest girl in the world, but the fame got to me, and I had to keep my image up, and the pressure got to me, and then I cheated, and she cheated, and we're true love, so we have to learn to get over that. And then they do get over that. More on that later because I have opinions. And then I looked at it, and there's 20 minutes left in the movie, and me and her were like, "What's going to happen in 20 minutes?" Like, And then I go, oh, I don't know, maybe he's gonna die or something. Again, I didn't know this was about a real person at the time. And then he dies immediately. It happens so fast. We're like, holy fuck, he does die. That's crazy. I didn't see that coming. No other part of this movie was, well, actually, he almost gets his neck broken, but then that happens really fast.
Oh, he gets his nuts stepped on too.
That's true. Those scenes do happen. They just happen so fast, and there's like a lot of nothing in between that I didn't feel like the movie was about the danger of bull riding. It was more about his relationship, secondarily about his like quest to be the best, you know?
Mm-hmm. I actually like the, I think, I don't know. I didn't mind Luke Perry in this movie at all. I kind of thought everybody was decent, in my opinion. I did. I loved Cody.
Boomhowering so hard. I didn't understand anything he said. My girlfriend had to translate all of it. I was like, all right, Mississippi, you're gonna have to help me. Because we rewound one line 4 times and we couldn't stop laughing because we had no idea what he said.
You didn't like the poems? The
No,
cowboy poems?
Poems
Those are real poems, by the way. By
Yeah,
a famous
I need to stick to hurting animals because he's bad at poetry.
it's by a famous cowboy poet. I have 2 of his books. His name's Buster Black.
Buster Black. I thought you
And is also the basis of the Comedy Bang Bang character that
yeah, what's his name? Dalton something, right?
Dalton Wilcox.
Dalton Wilcox, cowboy poet laureate of the West.
That's right. So yeah, those were real poems.
They're fine poem. Poetry subjective. I take it back.
This is a poetry film.
This is a film about poetry, and the film itself is actually poetry in a very real way. Yeah, this movie, it's shot really weird, and there are great shots in this movie. Like there are a lot of shots. I was like, well, that's awesome. That's a really cool like I don't know, the Unit B director probably just like had some skill, but then there's a lot of just like made for TV ugliness in between.
Yeah,
you know.
there's a lot of like overlays, like and stuff. Yeah, it's really bad in that regard.
There's like an orange filter to a lot of it that really reminds me of 90s television more than 90s film.
Yeah,
they're doing that a lot.
I do think this was supposed to be like Luke Perry's coming out of television. Like,
you said you like Luke Perry's acting. I did not at all, but I think on the internet, the little bit I saw, he was genuinely well received in this movie. I think people did like him in this movie, and then they gave her a lot of crap, and she's not a great actor. But I was like, I don't know why they're giving her so much crap. She's not worse than him, in my opinion.
I love her, but for other reasons. She's a main character in Northern Exposure, the television show, and she's wonderful in that show. So, but she's basically playing the same character except stupider and doesn't like cheat on her husband all the time. So,
yeah. All right. So then, well, first of all, she had like crazy eyes. I remember when they were first falling in love, and the romance is very compelling. Like the first third of the movie, when they're falling in love, I was like, these guys really do have a lot of chemistry. There's like a lot of weird silences and like awkward smiles and almost kissing moments and stuff like that. That felt really great. I think that was some of the best acting in the whole movie. Was they're falling in, well, their whole relationship maybe. But let's talk about the cheating, right? Like he cheats first. In the movie wants to celebrate this dead animal abuser so bad, right? That the way that he cheats is like a fan comes to his hotel door and
not just any fan, Renee Zellweger.
Oh, was that how that was Renee Zellweger? All right, yeah, Renee Zellweger. Bridget Jones comes to his door. It says, and she literally says, "It's raining. You gotta let me in." Cold Mountain reference. All right.
Yes.
No, and then basically, like, she keeps kind of trying to flirt with them, and he goes, no, miss, I got an early day tomorrow, and I'm married and all that, and then she goes, but it's so cold out here, and like wiggles her arms a little bit, and he's like, I'm a gentleman, I gotta let this woman in and fuck her now. It's the only option.
She's cold.
She says she's cold, and he's like, all right. She's an adult. She's been cold before. Go the fuck home. That's what you say, right?
Got here somehow.
And that's the very kind way that his cheating is like, portrayed. Then she ends up cheating with an ex-boyfriend because her husband's an asshole, which isn't okay. I'm not justifying that. But hers is portrayed not in the meanest way possible, but just like that she's unhappy in her marriage and cheats with an ex, And then he finds out about that, gets really mad, doesn't commit to his infidelities at all, spends a long time being sad, and then goes, oh, I know how to fix everything. I'll just go tell her that I cheated on her too. And he's like, I gotta find her. This is great. Everything's gonna be great now. And he goes and finds her, and he goes, hey, I never told you I cheated on you multiple times, which we only see the one where he just had to be a cowboy gentleman and let that cold girl into his warm room. That's the only thing he could do. But then he admits that he did it multiple times, where she only did it once. And then she goes, "You really cheated on me too? Well, fuck. I think we're all even then, right?" And then they're like back together, and then he
Even
dies.
Stevens, baby. No, I love it. Before that, before like he's like left her, he's like living with his parents or whatever. She's living with her parents, and his mom's like, "Lane, tell me you did not cheat on her."
Yes, his mom was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's, his mom, and then the dad getting the "I love yous" out of the dad.
Yeah, right. But he didn't really. He just got an "I'm proud of you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the house because you definitely did something wrong, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna see it. This is the plot of the Pina Colada song. Yeah, this is definitely.
You like horses and bulls too? I had no idea. Why did we ever leave each other? But yeah, I don't feel like her character was treated as like horrible for cheating, but they were carrying a lot of water to make him look better than, if you read between the lines, he was in that relationship, and the wrap up of that, because I don't know that he fully like has an opening, like, because he doesn't have the revelation either that like, oh yeah, I've been taking this fame thing too seriously. He has like a Patrick Mahomes moment where he tells her to like, hey, everybody's watching. I need you to like turn your resting bitch face off, right? Like he does that to her, and so he kind of becomes a scumbag, and that's the arc. But he never really stops being a scumbag. He just says, "Oh fuck, I should admit the multiple times I've cheated on her as well." And then she's like, "All right, cool."
This movie's about bros too, because those bros they know he's cheating on her, and they're still friends with Cat, like especially Tough Hedeman's character. He's friends with Kelly. They talk, whatever, but he never gives up Lane. He never says that he's cheating on her all the time or anything like that.
Which is funny about Tough is that like they really made me think at the beginning that he was going to be an enemy / rival.
Yes, yeah, he does kind of play that up a little bit. Like you think that but throughout the movie and throughout the movie, they keep saying it like Tough Hedeman plays first, or Cody plays second, and and Lane plays third in this thing. Like
right.
you do think that those guys that he's running with might end up being rivals, but it seems like in the bull riding community, everybody's just like nobody's against each other. They're all just against the bulls.
Right. Yeah. Well, and then like these are his hometown homies, right? Like he's traveling all over the world dealing with all this shit, and he gets to do it with some like ride or dies, right? You know, like, and no pun intended.
This is a big FFA movie, man. This is a big 4-H movie. People love this movie. Yeah. I particularly love the wedding scene where they have a dance off.
Yeah, but they're doing like weird Yiddish Russian dancing. We were talking about that. Like, I guess that's like some square dancing stuff, but it's not quite. It feels weird to me.
Yeah, no, it's all. I mean, that's the stuff that I'm used to, that kind of stuff. And people wanted to be these guys. They wanted their tight Wrangler jeans and their lacer boots and all this stuff. Like, yeah, this is my world, man.
I get it. I get that they're cool. I get that their clothes are cool. I get that they're hot boys. I like all of that. I do.
Bull riders are fuck boys, by the way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally.
I love that they're called buckle bunnies.
Buckle bunnies. I love it. That's great.
That's a great groupie name for bull riders. You have puck bunnies for hockey, and you got buckle bunnies for these. Love those rodeo girls. Yeah. I love 8 Seconds.
That's okay. You can love it. I'm sorry I was mean to it. It is.
Oh
it
no,
was fun to watch. It really was. Like we watched The Scout last night, and because I remembered and liked that one, I wanted my girlfriend to see it, and then I told her, I was like, hey, you can fall asleep and go to bed, but like, I'm supposed to watch 5 movies in the next 24 hours. I had today off of work because I've been so busy out of town and at work. I just took it off anyway. So I was like, but I got to start another movie. I'm on a schedule here. And she's like, yeah, I'll probably fall asleep. And then we watched the whole thing. And she's like, I didn't fall asleep at all. We love watching 8 Seconds. So it probably might be my highest recommendation because it is kind of cool at moments and then so weird and bad at other moments.
I do recommend this movie. Pair this movie with a movie called Pure Country. I think it came out a couple years before this, but it's about George Strait being a country singer, famous country singer who doesn't like all the lights and smoke of country singers and like becoming popular. So he gets back to his roots. Highly recommend it. It's not a good movie at all, but if you enjoyed 8 Seconds, it's up there.
All right, I'd watch that for sure. I'd a little bit of side trivia. I don't know if you know. Do you know how Luke Perry died? He died too young, I think. He died in 2019.
It was a heart issue. It was
Was it?
something along the lines of like maybe something like John Ritter died of, maybe like.
Just like a defect that just kind of snapped or something.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was something like that. I think it was. No, stroke is what it says.
Oh, no, a
Yeah,
heart issue might lead to a stroke. Yeah,
yeah.
sure. Um, yeah, that's very sad or whatever. I did, and the mildest amount of googling in that I didn't click on the article, but I just read the one sentence that was available in my Google search that said that Luke Perry was buried in a compostable suit made of mushrooms, and that quote unquote it didn't work. So I don't know what that means, but you guys can look it up. It seems pretty
That's
bad.
such a bummer. I want to be buried in a mushroom suit.
I think the idea is that the mycelia would grow out of your body, and the mushrooms are very mystical and amazing in the way that they share information and are very intelligent. So it's like, hey, I want to become mushrooms. I think it's a cool idea, but I assume that's what it is. Like you get like buried in a suit made out of mushroom mycelium, and then like mushrooms grow from your dead Luke Perry body.
Well, that is that is how I want to be buried, by the way. For
Yeah, yeah.
all those. This is my living will to put out here in the world. Is that there's a body farm in Knoxville, Tennessee, for their school to understand how bodies decompose and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Send me there. That's where I want to go.
Cool, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, what else about 8 seconds? There was so much. I remember it was late last night, and I'd had some drinks, and I was like, I'm gonna forget so much about this movie tomorrow. There's so much I want to talk about.
No, the scene where he gets his balls stepped on is pretty prominent in my head. Because he seems like he's in a lot of pain, and like that his dick is barely hanging on too.
Say something like that, like it's hanging by a thread. Like,
yeah. And that stuck out in my mind from when I was a child to now. That's a very prominent scene, just because, I mean, boys and their manhood, that's a very precious thing. And
very precious. You know who else really cares about their manhood, their balls and dicks? Bulls. Bulls also care a lot about that.
Oh, man.
Lots of genitalia was harmed in this film. We were only asked to care about one man's dick.
Hey, but the Bulls lived on.
Did they?
To fight other days,
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm not promoting this by any means, but I wonder if bulls like that are, prominent bulls in this arena get to live out, their lives like racehorses do. They end up living in, like, some of them, the good ones anyway,
I'm sure that the people who do that with some of them talk about that a lot and not about the other issues as much.
But I wonder if Red Rock had a nice life after this.
Yeah. He was a real one, man. It was like 100 or 300 rides, and nobody couldn't stay on for 8 seconds. It's pretty wild.
And 8 seconds is a long fucking time.
I could do it. It seems easy. I don't think that we ever got to the end. Is like the little epilogue is that Steve Baldwin's character Tough, after the main character died that year, made it a point to say, in his honor, I'm going to ride Red Rock. I'm going to be the first one. And he stayed on like 8 seconds. He stayed on like 16 seconds, just like in loving memory of his fellow animal abuser.
The bull that killed him is called Taking Care of Business.
Yeah, and he sure did.
He sure did. He sure did.
They didn't on business.
They didn't do an autopsy because they kind of figured it out that he was crushed to death. So.
Oh yeah. Okay.
What should we talk about next? Which one is our favorite here? Above the Rim or
they're out of there? Because what is there to say? We can talk about that in like 6 minutes, right?
You're up there. White guy becomes African through body mutilation. More at 11. Yeah. So this movie starring Kevin Bacon is about an assistant coach and one-time college star whose headstrong personal style has threatened his rise to head coach. He spots a teenage basketball sensation on a videotape sent back from one of the college's religious missions in Africa. Hoping to advance his own career in the process, he quickly sets out to recruit a 6'10" player for his lackluster team. Yeah. So this movie is all about Kevin Bacon going to Africa. I don't remember what country.
Kenya.
Is it Kenya? Yeah. To go to this tribe and convince this guy to come play in the United States. and he tries everything he can to get there. He gives them cows, um,
Some cows, which
and
is
then
illegal. And they actually talk about that too. Like Blue Chips, they say, "Oh, like it's a pretty easy loophole to just like buy cows for this village. That's not giving a college kid a ton of money and cash in a duffel bag, right? I'm on another continent. He's going to find out I broke this rule." And they had less, moral compunctions about it. Is that the right word? I don't know.
I think my favorite thing about this movie is that the bad guys in this movie, who are a neighboring tribe or village,
The
uh,
monster in this movie.
yeah, the Monstars. Uh, that's exactly it. This is Space
Yeah,
Jam.
it was kind of.
That's what this is Space Jam.
Mhm.
And yeah, I like that they just had a rival basketball, like they had a team already.
They already had a team. Yeah.
It's like, this is our team. You want to recruit any of them? And for Kevin Bacon to be like, no, fuck no. Even though these are like clearly better basketball players. He's like,
Yeah.
no. I don't need these guys.
Right. You would think too that if basketball's that common and you found one tall guy who's really good, there's a lot of really good guys. Like, don't be the hero who brings back the one guy. Be the hero that brings back 20 dudes.
Yeah. This is your pipeline, my guy. You don't
Like,
need.
the only one on the continent who's recruiting there. Like, you have a whole continent worth of talent. But no, he's just focused on the one dude.
My favorite part of this movie might be the first joke and then the callback joke where they go, "That point guard has tits."
Oh, I don't remember that. Why did he say? Why did they say that?
Because the 6'10" guy is playing against a girl
Oh yeah,
in the
right.
video, and then they actually recruit her to play on the team because she's actually really good.
Yeah.
The point guard has tits. That they say it
Yeah.
twice in this movie. Really
I
give you
took
the
the last 9 minutes because I was under time pressure, and I was like, you know what? I think I got the air up there down pat. I'm just gonna go ahead and roll into the next movie.
yeah. You didn't miss much.
It's very funny. The movie's kind of mildly amusing and entertaining. Like, it's not shot poorly. It's just not that funny. It's not that interesting. It's thankfully not as racist as I would have expected.
It really isn't.
Like, I mean, there's a lot of like fish out of water comedy where like they see him drink the goat's milk and they know he's gonna, have the like what was the tribe called again? I forget.
I can't
I'm not gonna-
remember.
But like he's gonna have diarrhea a lot, and it's like, and that wasn't like none of that stuff. Even when there's a scene where like to get him over the diarrhea, they bring him like a bowl of like gray looking paste, and there's a little bit of like, oh my god, like monkey brains. Look at what these savages eat, kind of thing. But it's not that bad. Like it's just like some different thing that doesn't look appealing, but might be a fine lentil stew, right? So yeah, they don't make fun of their rural lifestyle. They don't make fun of their like lack of technology or the way they dress. They actually look awesome. I don't know how authentic any of the garb they were wearing was or the face paint, but it all looks really cool. Yeah,
And I
kind of like those people.
And I don't like, okay, so like what this movie does do, even though it feels like it is advertised that way, is like the traditional African tribe, like when nature calls is a great way, or North, even when that brief part in North where he sees, his African mom's boobs, like that. It doesn't do that stuff. It doesn't fall into those. Whenever they're in their traditional garb, it's for a reason, but for the most part, they're just living their lives. There's a neighboring city that's, a city. It's not,
even in the
we're not
village,
watching.
they have street lights and stuff. Yeah, and they're living a happy life. There's some of that like Western winking at the noble like life outside of the like capitalism and Western economy, where like Kevin Bacon, they're all like passing fresh water down. He's like, with a 3-inch pipe and a sump pump, we could just not have to do this. And the guy says, well, then we wouldn't be able to hang out with each other then. Like we do everything we need and we get everything we need. Like, we're happy to do it the way we do it.
Yeah,
it's not a great movie. It's not a shining example of like, cultural kindness. It was just kind of scary to start watching it from 30 years ago and then pleasantly surprised that, okay, I don't have to like bite my tongue or hold my breath about too much of this.
And I think this is it is distributed. It feels like a Disney movie. It feels like a Cool Runnings-esque movie, and it was made by them. It wasn't released as a Disney movie. It's like Hollywood Pictures or Buena Vista or whatever it is that they release their like adult films. But it does give you that Disney-esque sports movie that we've seen, especially like Cool Runnings or Mighty Ducks or any of that stuff. So, and it introduced us to the Jimmy Dolan Shake and Bake.
The Jimmy Dolan Shake and Bake. I like
Which
the
is
opening. I like the opening scene where he loses his temper with that like recruit, and then he like schools him. That was pretty cool.
yeah, no, I like that. It gave me a little bit of Jimmy Dolan should coach with Pete Bell
Yeah,
from Blue Chips. They'd make a great 1-2 team.
yeah, that'd be a good partnership.
So did you didn't get to see that very end where Sala goes to college and Jimmy is the coach and all
Nope,
that?
maybe I caught a few seconds of that, but I skipped about 8-9 minutes at the end.
Yeah, well, he succeeds in all of his stuff. So
I figured it wasn't going to be a tragedy.
that's all,
You missed it, Ryan. He got gored by a bull in the last 9 minutes.
that would have been incredible. A good crossover, and that's why I picked it. So no, the air up there is not. There's really not much to talk about. There is the scene where he becomes part of the tribe. Is he getting circumcised or?
So I asked my partner about that. She said the first time you see it, it looks like a stomach cut, but then he shows like, hey, the American can't play in that team, only members of the tribe, and they're like, he's like, he pulls his shorts up to be like, look at my dick, I am a member of the tribe, and not the 12 tribes, but like this tribe. Like,
Yeah, and I was like, well, I mean, there is a chance that he's not circumcised, but
yeah.
I mean that's a pretty bold. I don't know.
Yeah, they also like so he goes on his little like, hey, we want you to play with us, but you have to be a member of the tribe. But you've been such a good dude and everything. We're gonna make you a member of the tribe. So he goes on like a little spirit journey and throws away his precious championship ring because he doesn't need it anymore. But they both the first guy where they like kind of establish that ceremony, and then Kevin Bacon too. They both look like they're high, so it's also like implied that they're doing like some kind of like ayahuasca style, peyote style, like.
Mhm.
Like psychedelics, but you never see that. But they're just like seizing, and their eyes are going crazy, and they're shaking and everything, like they're really tripping when it all goes down.
And then after the fact, we see the first guy who gets this is like in pain for the next several days. Like there's a couple times when he's like grabbing his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Very briefly, we see that. But Kevin Bacon gets it done, and he has to play basketball the next day.
Well, Kevin Bacon's built different.
He is.
You're
not wrong.
He was a former champion.
That's true.
You don't get a ring like that by being sad about a little dick cut. You get up there and you post up.
He's got to watch his knee though, or else he'll never walk again.
Yeah, the weird mysterious ailment he had that like never seemed to slow him down, but he had like a props department made like a cardboard brace for him that was just like flopping around and didn't look like it was doing anything.
I love it. He gets injured, and you're like, "Oh shit, he's out of the game." They're going to put the girl in. The girl's going to, do everything. Then she gets kicked out of the game, and Kevin Bacon has to just all of a sudden be like, "I guess I got to play. I'm the only one."
Everything's on the line.
Everything's on the line. That village is on the line. Oh well.
Yeah, I think this is the worst of the 5.
Yeah. Although
it wasn't hell to watch. It was just whatever. There's just a lot better movies.
Let's talk about Above the Rim. It's a little bit. This is our highest rated movie of the 5. It's 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I just said, who plays basketball on a rooftop? That's the the only thing I have to say about that. Not the only thing. But anyway, the synopsis for this film is a high school basketball star is torn by loyalties to a drug dealer and an ex-player who also starts boinking his mom. This movie has Tupac in it. It's got Leon in it, Dwayne Martin in it.
Leon Derice from Cool Runnings.
That's right. And I think he's the worst one in this movie.
I think he has a cool character, but it kind of doesn't pay off. And then he has to be stoic a lot, and then that doesn't make it fun.
Tupac gets the best role.
He does. This was Tupac's last movie before he was killed. It's so funny because like growing up, not being, I was like 6 or whatever when Tupac was huge. So just feeling the cultural impact and heaviness of Tupac's presence, and then watching him act like in the year that he's going to be killed, supposedly, and I'm just like, I don't know. He just seems like a regular dude. I honestly get cranky about when people are like, oh, they were pretty good at acting. I'm like, you mean for somebody who doesn't belong in a movie? You're right. I think Tupac's pretty good at acting for somebody who doesn't belong in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And if like Brad Pitt was doing like vocal work on my favorite band's album, I wouldn't be like, he's pretty good at singing. I'd listen to something that sounded better. And so I don't like when non-celebrities get a lower bar. I mean, non-actors get a lower bar in my movies. But Tupac isn't bad. He is decent. It's just kind of a little wolf, yeah.
Gets a little bit overly praised in especially in bad movies. We saw him in what was it?
Poetic Justice.
Poetic Justice last year, and he's good in that movie. I mean, he's better than.
He has a lot of lines in that movie, and he has a decent amount of lines in this one. So he's like doing real acting work. He would never have gotten the role, like, you know, without being Tupac.
But this is also another movie where it's interesting to me that, like, where they have to get to. Like I kind of said with the air up there, this villain has a team, a basketball team already set up. And then Tupac, who is the villain in this movie, is like trying to recruit this high school kid to play on his like 5-on-5 tournament, street ball tournament. Like that's the end goal.
Scary. And the end of the movie makes him not scary. Like the end, I mean, like you are scared of him where he's like, I'm gonna fuck your world up. You're not going to college, like you're not allowed to leave my gang, like that kind of stuff. And I mean, we see him stab Bernie Mac, like he's that big of a baddie, but then at the end you get like a kind of fun, but like weird tonally 20-minute basketball tournament in the bright sun with bright colors. And Tupac's whole thing the whole time is like, I gotta win that street ball tournament. And it's like, I don't know, this seems like a little Disneyfied now. Like instead of the rated R life's hard in the streets, you know, like there's a lot of ways to sell your soul out there kind of movie that it starts out to be.
And this movie starts in the wildest way ever because it has that Leon character playing basketball with somebody else that we don't know, falling to his death.
Yeah.
Because he dunks on a roof and goes off the edge. I had to pause the movie.
2 minutes in, yeah.
2 minutes in, I had to pause the movie because I was like, what the hell am I like, what is this?
Yeah. Yeah, it's strange. I don't think it's very good. It goes in 8 different directions and it doesn't resolve them all. So Shep is interesting, and the Bernie Mac character is interesting, and the Marlon Wayne stuff is interesting. The mom stuff is interesting. The coach is pretty interesting, but like I don't know, like it's trying to have too much plot stuff, and so like the disappointing ones that don't get wrapped up very well drag the movie down. But at the same time, my complaint about the movie is that it's kind of just too basic. It's just there's just a million movies about like, you know, being young in the hood, struggling with like gang influences and the temptations of materialism and being cool, but also trying to keep your head on straight and work hard, you know, for better opportunities and be responsible and stuff. There's a ton of movies about that. So this one's far from the best one.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched we haven't watched Boys in the Hood. Boys in the Hood's one that I always reference because I love it so much. I love that movie. If we're talking about that story and everything, and you have what's his Furious? I love his character's name. God, Lawrence Fishburne's amazing in that movie. That is the movie.
That's so great because everything feels it's so much better made that like that world feels very real and it feels very reflective of our actual world. And that, like, the way that Trey is Cuba Gooding's character, like Trey needs to keep his head on straight. Isn't like you need to cash in this golden ticket because you're a great basketball star. It's like, no, you just need to like grow up fast, be a man, take care of your business, get some education, get some money, take care of your girlfriend, you know, be good to your family, and don't get involved in this and all this other stuff that just destroys lives. And so like, yeah, the heaviness and the very like realness of what goes on in Boys in the Hood makes this movie look a little silly, like it just doesn't know how to do its job in creating like real consequences.
And I think there are a lot more movies like this that are coming out that are based on or are trying to cash in on. Okay, we had a lot of people that loved Boys in the Hood, and then we had a lot of people that really stuck with Menace to Society, and those are like the 2 movies that they are all drawing from. Because I see those movies in a parallel, and one is showing you, okay, this is, you know, how to be a man and how to get all that get out, and this one is what happens if it doesn't work, and that's Menace to Society. And then everything else is just like, hey, we can put out a bomb ass soundtrack and we can put out a half ass movie about the same thing and make bank. And that's what I think a lot of these movies are at this time.
First of all, the soundtrack and Above the Rim is fucking great. It was released by Death Row. There's a lot of Snoop and a lot of Warren G, Dr. Dre producing. It's a great soundtrack, and every time they were playing a song, I was kind of bopping to it, and it made the movie a lot more fun to watch. So that actually adds on to something I did want to say. So some of this is because of the rise of 90s gangster rap, out of like 80s rap was.
Mhm.
And so you're seeing those stories like that are in that kind of music reflected on screen a lot more. But we have 3 out of 5 of these movies are basketball movies. And I looked up, like, basketball movies weren't a thing until the mid 90s. You have White Men Can't Jump 2 years earlier than this. And you have some white people basketball movies like Hoosiers or even like Teen Wolf a little bit, you know.
Mhm.
But there's really not much basketball movies at all. Or you have the Pistol Pete movie for TV, right? Like, I did see like a long list of movies I never heard of, or like made for TV movies where movies where basketball is a big part of it. But there are no true basketball movies until the mid 90s, until maybe after Hoosiers, White Men Can't Jump, pretty much, as I think
Yeah.
the first basketball movie. And then you get a lot of them in the 90s. We've got 3 or 4 in this year, and I think every year between now and 2001, you're gonna have some like Love and Basketball,
Space Jam.
Space Jam, absolutely. He Got Game. Yeah, there's a ton of them actually.
And the
So
early 2000s too had a bunch of Glory Road, Coach Carter. All
yeah.
these movies came out at the same time.
So yeah, and also maybe you're starting to slowly see Hollywood become more like racially diverse a little bit in a slow way. But then like the way you enter culture, it's through music, sports, and you know, and like hood shit is how it's often portrayed. But you're starting to see that change. And there's
Mhm.
plenty of sports movies before the mid 90s, but there just wasn't many basketball movies. And here we are, like kicking off 3 or 4 in a year.
Chat just mentioned Double Teamed.
You gotta love it. They're twins.
They're twins. That's why we called it Double Teamed. No, that is interesting. I never even thought about that, honestly, because and it probably because of Hoosiers coming out in the 80s and being such like the basketball movie that I didn't even realize that there weren't a ton of basketball movies. And it seems like baseball kind of ruled those kind of movies at the time.
Yeah.
You get more Field of Dreams, you get more Major League movies like that.
Definitely
and
baseball, and not a lot of football either, I guess.
Not a lot of football, no. Couple in there, Necessary Roughness, and what's the one about the kid that dies? I don't even remember.
Oh yeah, we watched Rudy a couple years ago, right?
Rudy, yeah, Rudy. So yeah, that's interesting that basketball. Honestly, it's probably just with the rise of like obviously with gangster rap and all that stuff coming out in the 90s too, but the
But
rise of
cool.
NBA basketball being like after Magic and Larry, like Michael Jordan is there, and so like
The production quality is way higher. The stadiums are big light shows. The Bulls are crazy. It's a whole new era of basketball in the 90s than it was in the 80s and 70s and stuff. And so with that came a ton of merch, a ton of like you know, like marketing and stuff. And then now I think we're finally in the era where people are like, well, fuck. Also, I think that's why the era there gets made, is because a lot of times like movies that we've already done in other sports, we can just redo them in basketball for a new audience. So like they don't have to be that creative.
Air Bud.
Air Bud comes out, Slam Dunk Ernest in 1995. Stay tuned next year when we cover Slam Dunk Ernest. Eddie, Celtic Pride, Sunset Park.
Oh, Celtic Pride. I forgot about Celtic Pride.
Yeah, the Sixth Man. He Got Game.
Basketball. I love the Sixth Man. Speaking of Marlon Wayans, who I think I kind of liked Marlon Wayans in this movie.
I did too.
Like
Yeah.
I liked his character. I feel like he got more to do, or maybe he, didn't get much to do and was just so compelling that they were like, "Hey, you're Wayans, you can make this funny, right?" And he actually made a more in-depth character, I think.
Yeah, I don't think I always love when Marlon Wayans is on screen in movies, but I think he's always trying hard, and I like that about him. I find Marlon Wayans luck of the Irish. You're just talking about Disney Channel.
She could go off on some Disney Channel original movies. She's a DCOM girl. Sunset Park with Rhea Perlman.
Yeah, we didn't mention Love and Basketball yet, or the Basketball Diaries.
Basketball Diaries comes out next year. That's just about sad white kids in the 60s or something like that, that occasionally play basketball. But yeah, it is an interesting time for basketball movies to start coming out.
We got Hoop Dreams this year, which I'm sure not a million people watched, but was a big success. We watched it. You did it on the podcast. But yeah, before that, like the Pistol Pete thing's 91, Hoosiers and Teen Wolf 85 and 86. And then, I mean, The Great Santini is an awesome movie and book, but that's not a basketball movie.
Right.
Yeah. I do want to real quick because I did see this. The first one on the list is from 1927 called The Fair Coed. 1927 silent film about a
Buster
college girl.
Keaton?
Huh?
Is it Buster Keaton film?
I don't think so. It's about a girl, Marion Davies.
Oh, okay.
Wait, Marion Davies?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Who is Miss Cunningham in Happy Days? I thought that was Marion Davies. It's Marion something else. Marion Cunningham's
Yeah.
her name. Silent film about a college girl who plays basketball to hook the coach. 1927. Female
That's what I-
protagonist using
That's
sports and sex to snag a powerful man.
is that what you would pair this movie with?
Yeah, the 1927 silent film, The Fair Coed.
The Fair Coed. Johnny Mac Brown and Marion Davies, that old joint.
Yeah, but apparently that at least on the Wikipedia list of basketball films, that's the first one they have listed.
No, I think I was thinking of not a Buster Keaton movie, a Harold Lloyd movie where he's a football player. I think.
I know what you're
That's
talking about.
yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen like shots from it.
Well, that's our 5 movies. Is there anything else that anybody wants to say about this? Forever Hold Your Peace. Have you seen anything lately that you want to talk about that isn't these shitty 5 movies that I asked you to watch?
Was in Las Vegas last week for work, and I sat in the hotel and watched Pluto Pluto the whole time, and I watched all 10 Star Trek movies.
I did Star Trek. I didn't do the new ones, but I watched all the old ones this year.
If I had time, I would have just gone through and watched the new ones because I haven't seen the third like reboot one. But I got all the way through, and I kept having to rewind because I was reading comics or falling asleep. But I kept rewinding because all of them were on demand on Pluto. And so yeah, I watched all the original series movies and all of the TNG movies up through like Nemesis. I think is the 10th.
Yeah,
And
I watched.
bad. I've seen them all before. They're all bad.
They're not all bad.
Huh?
They're not all bad.
Yeah, I think even the good ones aren't that good. I think both shows are way better than any of the movies that came out of them.
Yeah, I do enjoy the one where they're in the present. Like
When they go back to save the whales.
I love that
Yeah.
one.
They actually do. They actually go back in time to not the present, but like 2035 and another one, and it basically feels like they just did that again.
I love that one. That was a fun watch, though. I had not seen. I wanted to do the same with the Planet of the Apes movies, and I watched the first one and then didn't keep going. So
Yeah, I've done that with Planet of the Apes back in high school. Watched all the old ones. I would do that again. So that's all I've watched movie wise. Every time you ask me that, I usually just don't watch movies that much at the moment. But I did see 10 movies last week, and they were all Star Trek movies.
that's awesome. No, I love that you watched all those movies this year because I did the same. That makes me happy. I watched a Dario Argento film, the bird with the crystal plumage. I watched that one recently. It was very good. If you like giallo stuff, I guess. So, if that's not really, it's not so much a like horror movie as it is just like a thriller. I think it's it's Argento's first movie. So it's more of just like a murder mystery thriller kind of thing, and not
giallo stuff. What are you talking
giallo. Yeah, that's like the Italian. That's like the era in the 70s, like late 60s, early 70s.
Like
horror movies,
horror films with like lots of blood and stuff.
yes, very bright colors, a lot of red, a lot of bright reds and stuff.
Yeah,
Suspiria,
Mario Bava did a lot of like Italian
Yes.
horror movies back then. I know. I didn't know that was the name of like I didn't know the Italian name of that era. That
Yeah.
was seems interesting. My favorite band's the Mountain Goats, and John Darnielle writes a lot of songs that have really oblique references to Italian gore films in the 60s and 70s.
It makes me want to read his book. I wonder if
I
it's kind of
all his books, and they're all good reads.
yeah. I need to. I have Devil House. I think that's the one I.
The Whole House of Spawn, I think that's the last one he wrote, and then his first one, The Wolf and White Van, I think is my favorite of the three.
Nice. Well, I love talking with you.
Well,
You're awesome.
You.
Well, we're going to do this again next month, and I've only got 2 movies for next month, so it's a lot easier task to take on than 5 movies in one day. Next month's category is Game Over Man, and we're going to be watching Double Dragon and Street Fighter, 2 movies based on video games from 1994. They're both very, very bad movies, but definitely very prominent in my childhood. So do watch those and join us next month at the end of the month. We'll do this again. It'll be fun. And we're also going to be doing a ranking episode of all the Coen Brothers movies. We're going to be doing that in a couple weeks. So it might be, 2 weeks, I think, is what I had planned for that. Like October 9th or 10th, somewhere around there. So just be looking for those. Watch, try and remember your Coen Brothers if you're trying to watch through them. Half of them are probably streaming right now. The other ones are you have to pay for. So check those out, and we'll do a ranking here in a couple weeks. So,
and then finally, you're doing Wolf next week. Oh no, you're doing Little Rascals on Sunday.
Little Rascals this Sunday, and then we'll move into our our horror movies for the next month. Doing Wolf and Interview with the Vampire, Serial Mom, and Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the Kenneth Branagh
one, right? I remember liking that movie a lot.
Yeah. That movie actually might be the reason why I got into Frankenstein. And got one of those books, those readers books. They were always cheap at like Walden Books or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, just like pulp paper. Cheap printing. Totally.
Yeah. So really got into those. But that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be talking about Little Rascals on Sunday. We hope to see you there. Thanks everybody for all your subscriptions and your follows and everything. If you want to get more involved, get in the Discord and talk with us about movies. We're talking about movies. We've been talking about pinball. There's we saw Ryan playing pinball the other night in a pinball tournament there in Memphis, and that was a lot of fun. Learning about that. That was interesting. What'd you say?
You watched a little bit of it?
Oh, I watched, if not all of it, the other day.
I had no idea. That's awesome. I like the setup. The setups are so cool for pinball tournaments. You get the down camera, and you get the backboard, and you get the camera of the people, and the wide shot, and the commentators. I think it's pretty cool watching pinball on stream and YouTube. Is well done.
Yeah, I look forward to the next time that they have it. I didn't catch it live. I watched the VOD while I was working the other day, but I was enamored with it, and there was one machine there that kept pissing me off. It was Blackout. Yeah, that one. I was just like, I hate this. Nobody did good.
Yeah, huh?
Nobody did good on it.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. I mean, that machine's not unfair. I kind of like playing it, but the older the machine, the more unfair it'll be. Certainly no ball saves in a machine that old. So yeah, it can be kind of brutal.
I think that was the one where I saw your partner go up to the machine, and she shot it, and she didn't even get a chance. It like went straight down between the flippers, and I was like, "Well, fuck this game."
It can be pretty brutal sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got into it. It was good. It was fun.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So that was nice to learn about. So do check that out, and it is in the Discord. There's stuff in there about that. So check that out, and we'll see you Sunday for 52/1994 as regularly programmed, I guess. We'll see you then. So thanks everybody.